Hello and welcome to the Patreon channel of True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Today is episode 37 in the ongoing series hashtag 2 years ago today CW, and there's certainly some interesting things that we still don't know 2 years later. Remember that note that was written on this day when Watts went to his family. There was apparently a handwritten note saying, if something happens to me, look at my wife, or something like that. And so that is definitely something that we still don't know for sure what was going on there. It does look like it was Chris Watts' handwriting, but what on earth was going on in his mind and in their minds when this was going on? It does suggest that they knew quite a lot was going on that nobody else knew. So in other words, his in-laws didn't know, Shan'ann didn't know, his friends didn't know. So in other words, they seemed to know that he was having an affair, like immediately. So he felt, if you sort of think that Chris Watts couldn't tell anybody that he was having an affair, well, he did tell, or his family did find out quickly. They knew him, and his family found out quite quickly. He told the FBI fairly quickly. It eventually came out, I think, halfway through the second interrogation, but bear in mind they already knew it. So that wasn't something he willingly wanted to disclose. But the whole thing with that note that was written also has kind of a bearing with the plastic doll, and we're now getting into that area of intrigue of, is this part of the premeditation? Is it random? What is going on here? And you're going to really need to concentrate on these episodes now to stay on the right wavelength in terms of the criminal psychology. And how to do that, you really want to follow three strands continuously. You want to have the continuity of the three strands going backwards and going forwards, but you also want to concentrate on where you are in the strand at the time, meaning where are you in Chris Watts' strand in terms of what happened the day before and what's going to happen the next day, but what is happening on this day? Do I know exactly what is going on with this thread? Same thing with Shan'ann, same thing with Kessinger. And then the critical thing is to overlap the strands at the right place to say, this is how they're rubbing one another the wrong way. This is how the one strand's agitating the other, or how can I put it, tightening it or loosening it, or whatever the case may be, creating knots, undoing knots, whatever. So at this point in the timeline, we're at page 23, more or less halfway through the 50-page phone data review. Now, it may feel as though we're not even halfway, we're less than halfway. It may feel like we're halfway, but actually we're not. Actually, we're 1 week to go to the crime. We are now at the last Monday, the last full Monday Shan'ann will be on this earth, the last full Monday Choran will be on this earth, the last Monday that the fetus that is, somewhat, how can I put it, is somewhat aware of his existence, is maybe moving slightly, whatever, but it's also the last Monday of the unborn Niko. And bear in mind what is happening here. Watts is alone on this day, is not with his wife on this day. He's supposed to be. That's why I went to North Carolina. He's not with his children on this day. He's supposed to be, but he's not. He's not with his unborn baby. He's supposed to be, but he's not. And where is he? Is with his parents, and his parents aren't very happy with Shan'ann. It doesn't really matter whose side you're on. You might say, poor Shan'ann, she was right, I wouldn't go there, blah, blah, blah. But you can bet the fact that she wasn't there, when Watts went there, they would have a lot of things to say about her, which I think she knew. She knew they would. But think about it on the other side as well. When they were saying things, it may also have reinforced what Chris was thinking and feeling as it was. In other words, if they were angry with her, if they were pissed off with her, if they were resentful of her, that would have fed his own resentments as well, meaning bringing them to the surface, bringing his anger to the surface. And he could possibly vent a little bit to them to say, this is what she did, this is what she said, and this and that and the next thing. And it probably would have brought him closer to his parents, that side of his family. In other words, this schism, Shan'ann may think, well, I'm going to take you away from your family and we're going to go off into the sunset. But it was actually the opposite. Her taking him away from his family at this time with the affair was effectively the final nail in the coffin of the end of their relationship. Not just the relationship with her, but the relationship with the children as well. It was basically, he felt basically that his relationship with his parents and possibly Kessinger were really the only relationships he really cared about. He wanted to protect them, maybe sister as well, and Kessinger. And he didn't really care anymore what happened to Shan'ann and the kids who now weren't with him. They weren't there. And now he is off being his own person and making decisions. And so anyway, we're going to deal with that without sort of glossing over it. We're going to deal with it by going through the timeline and contextualizing where we are in terms of those threads. And what I mean by, even though it feels like we're almost halfway through the phone data review, it's just a week to go. We've actually been dealing with 2 months and even more. We've been dealing with 2 months of phone data review, but it's now getting very dense. And what I mean is, from now on, every single day is like a full page. And I think the day before the murders and the day of the murders, it is like 2-3 pages. So the phone data review starts to become almost like chapters, and they become a lot more dense and a lot more fraught. A lot is happening. A lot of people are chattering. Some of it's sort of behind the scenes. Some of it is a residue of something else. Now, bear in mind, the phone data review is just a shadow of what is actually going on. It's a shadow of things that were being said, things that were being done. And the phone data review is just providing you with a silhouette. You, in your mind, have got to color in the foreground. And the foreground is very vivid. There are dead bodies. There are furtive movements in the dark. There's sex. There's nudity. There is desire. There's resentment. There is anxiety. There's debt. All those things. But they're not seen. It's kind of in the shadows. And the phone data review is just hinting at that. It's like a skeletal finger of a tree pointing you in a direction, and you've got to see what it's pointing to, not look at the finger. Don't look at the finger. Look at what the finger is pointing at, if that makes sense. So, despite the doldrums on August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in the timeline, August 4th and 6th are 2 huge milestones in the review. Up to this point, August 6th is arguably the day when the most traffic passes between Shan'ann's phone and Watts' phone. Bear in mind, part of the reason for this is they are truly separated on this day. And what I mean by that is they're not actually in the same house now. It's not her texting him from the room next door late at night or early in the morning. Now he's literally somewhere else. Now think about the parallel that's going on here. Is in the same way that now Shan'ann has said, well, go, I'm not going with you, you go off, do what you want, don't blame me for holding you back. So he goes off, but while he's gone, Shan'ann's got to feel really insecure. She's already felt he's not the Chris that she's known. She's already feeling ill, because of the way that he's poisoned her, but also because of stress. But now he's with his family, and she's got to be feeling very insecure about that. He's now going to almost to the fortress of the enemy. And is that going to be good for her? What do you think the answer is to that? Do you think him going to the fortress of the enemy is going to be good for her? And by saying that, I'm not implicating them. I'm not saying they said, do this to her, do that. I'm saying the criminal psychology that was already in Watts's heart and mind was probably ratcheted up a notch when he was away from her and he was with people that she'd upset, rightly or wrongly. And they would then have galvanized, crystallized, reinforced these feelings in him, from people that are quite close to him, especially his father. And the fact that this had been left to the last moment meant it was really dramatic. The fact that it was his last day in North Carolina meant there would probably be a lot of emotion, resentment, regret, just in the fact that it took so long for them to be able to see their son on a Monday. It would probably be just a lot of bitterness around that. Now just think if things were different. Think if Shan'ann had let him go and see his parents on the very first day. Let him take the kids to see. You would have diffused all of this tension and anxiety immediately. And maybe Cindy and Ronnie would have felt, we're really upset with Shan'ann, but thank you so much that we could just at least be together. Can you imagine if that anxiety that's been building up, every day it builds up more. Can you imagine if it was just washed away like a wave washing over a sandcastle? It just sort of washes away and it's gone. But now this thing is building up and building up and building up. And so on this day, and now you've got to see how the fact that he's with his family, in the same way that he's away from Kessinger, and that's making her insecure, him being with his family is making Shan'ann insecure, but also because he's with his family, it seems like he feels he has the wherewithal to drop the bomb he's carrying. He's been carrying this bomb for quite a while, and it seems like when he goes to his family, he feels that he can now drop this bomb, and we'll deal with what that bomb is. In the original blog post, on this day, Shan'ann tells him this is... Hey guys, thanks a lot for listening to that 13-minute preview of episode 37 in the Phone Data Review. It's actually one of the biggest, I think, episodes, the biggest milestones in the whole Phone Data Review. It is actually the day that Watts, for the first time ever, tells his wife that he doesn't want the baby, and he waits until the very last full day that they're in North Carolina to tell her, and tells her quite late, although it says something like 22:15 in the Phone Data Review. If you take it local time, it's around about 15 to 30 minutes before midnight local time. And so it's really late in the night on the very last day of Shanann's very last, of those 6 weeks spent in North Carolina, that she eventually finds out what kind of is going on with her husband. But that's all she finds out. She finds out that he doesn't want the baby, and that obviously gets her sort of suspicious. Well, why? Like, what is going on here? And so she almost immediately cottons on that something else is going on. And so very soon after him saying to her, I don't want the baby, she says, there's something you're not telling me. And this is the part that's really fascinating, is you would expect something like a Niko Gate at this point, where Shan'ann would get really upset about what has happened, and yet she just doesn't. She seems to know what is going on. She says to him twice, there's something going on that you're not telling me. And then she just sort of lets it go. And Cassie Rosenberg said something to that effect. It's quoted in the Discovery, where she says Shan'ann did kind of just decide to let it go. and that was arguably a fatal mistake that cost her her life. You could also argue that Nutgate was so much in Walter's mind that he was afraid there was going to be a Niko Gate, and Niko Gate was just waiting to happen kind of like at this point, from this point onwards. But you will see as we go further into the phone data review from this point that now they actually start negotiating. Should they get divorced? Should they actually stay together? Should they do marriage counseling? How does he feel about the baby? Has he changed his mind? And there's this sort of not an unpleasant roller coaster that starts from this point on, and we know what happens exactly a week later. So if you want to listen to the full episode, it's about 100 minutes, so around about 90 more minutes than you've already heard here. It's $1 on the Patreon tier, and you get access to a lot of other stuff as well. I'm also covering the Lori Vallow case. Obviously, because I've been covering this phone data review, it's taken quite a lot of my time, but I am covering the Lori Vallow case, and you can look forward to my coverage on that. As soon as we are through to the middle of the month, then I'll be covering the Lori Vallow case more consistently and more thoroughly as well. Not only here on YouTube, but also on Patreon, and I'm also working on a narrative that should be available by around about sometime in September, I hope. So that's something to look forward to. If you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, please do. If you haven't watched the videos on Lori Vallow, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.